bassist Sid Vicious. Did Atari really make a questionable ad featuring Stevie Wonder?
Hey everybody, this is Big Randy with the Smarts Project. For years, I have provided security and transportation for some of the biggest names in the music industry.
I'm John. I've been a musician for over 20 years, playing everything from metal and punk to bluegrass and country.
We're bringing you a podcast about some of the weirdest myths and legends that the music industry has to offer. This is Tall Tales in Music Mythology. Hey everybody, this is Big Randy with the Smarts Project. Thanks for taking time out of your schedule to listen to the podcast. And now with me on the wheels of steel, my partner in crime, because he done the time, Mr. Jonathan Glove.
Hello, everybody.
So in the music news, this is actually turning out to be my favorite part of the podcast. I don't know why.
I've got a couple things today too, so yeah.
Oh, right on. Go ahead. What's yours?
No. Do yours first.
All right, fine, be that way. So, Wu-Tang Clan are being sued for copyright infringement over their single "People Say," has been reported through TMZ. The New York hip hop group is facing legal action from a 1960s soul trio, the Diplomats. Man, I ain't heard that name, and I can't even tell you how long I ain't heard that name. So the band has drawn similarities between quote, the melody, lyrics, and rhythm, unquote, of the 2017 track and their 1969 release.
Oh, wow.
I've Got That Kind of Love. To anyone not familiar with both, listen to them both and you'll hear the sample, not the similarities that they're saying, but bottom line is they sampled the damn song.
Gotcha.
There's no way of getting around it.
Well, I'm sure I've heard it because I've listened to that album. So.
Oh, now see, I was the other way around. Like, I know the Diplomats, but, I'm not as hip on Wu-Tang because, Wu-Tang ain't nothing to fuck with. But I did listen to them for the sake of the story. I did listen to them both, and I was like, oh, shit, how are you going to fight this in court? Really? Okay. Well,
yeah, they're just going to have to pay royalties. I mean, there's just no way around that. If they sampled it, there's no way around that one.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. What you got?
Well, one thing I came across this week is that Stevie Ray Vaughan's first professional guitar is going up for auction.
What?
It's a 1951 Fender Broadcaster, which is what the Telecaster was known as before they had to before Leo Fender had to change the name of it. So
now, why did they have to change the name of it?
I forget who tried suing them. Someone tried saying that it was a television company, if I remember correctly, tried saying he was infringing on the usage of the word broadcast or some shit like that. I can't remember the exact details, but yeah, so the original Telecaster models are called broadcasters for that reason. So this is it's a 1951 Broadcaster, which I believe is the first year that the Broadcaster was made.
Wow.
If I'm not mistaken. And Stevie was given the guitar by his brother Jimmy Vaughn of the Fabulous Thunderbirds, mainly so that Stevie would stop borrowing his guitars all the time, which he was notorious for doing. He even took a guitar that Jimmy had let him borrow, and he sold it. He was just borrowing this guitar. I don't remember which one it was now. I think it was the Epiphone Riviera that he borrowed from him and sold it actually without Jimmy's knowledge.
What?
Yeah, he had a habit of doing shit like that.
Let's just say my name was, I don't know, Randy Van Halen.
Yeah.
And, I got pissed off that Eddie is borrowing my shit all the time. Wow. Could you imagine that your brother turns into one of the greatest guitars history has ever known? Wow. That's heavy, man.
Well, and the funny thing is, like Jimmy Vaughn gets overshadowed a lot, but he's a phenomenal guitarist in his own right, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Just not nearly to the degree that Stevie Ray Vaughan was. But
well, obviously, they're both better than me, without a doubt. I can't even play a radio as good as those brothers can play a guitar, but I think that as far as being influential and like pushing the boundaries of a genre, definitely Stevie Ray's got it going on,
Oh yeah, no doubt.
I think his brother kind of fell within the borders of normalcy, pushed it maybe a little bit, but as far as breaking new ground in a genre, yeah, Stevie Ray's got him beat.
Right. No, I completely agree with you on that.
Yeah, plus he has the benefit of being dead, so you got a bunch of people that'll back you up, like, oh no, he's the greatest, because he's dead.
Very true. But this guitar is expected, or the starting bid is $200,000, and I believe it has a reserve of $400,000, so should fetch at least close to $500,000. But yeah, it's pretty cool, and it actually has the word Jimbo, obviously for his brother, scratched into the back of it.
Wow.
And if I remember right too, I've got the link to the story here. I just don't have it pulled up. If I remember the story correctly, he actually did sell this guitar at one point. I think so. He got this guitar in the mid to late 60s. He sold it sometime in the 70s, I believe, and he tried to track it down for the next decade plus or so, and actually never got it back before he died.
I'll be damned.
So yeah, so there's a lot of interesting story to go with this guitar. In addition to, just the fact that it's an actual, a 1951 broadcaster, it would probably fetch, hell, I bet you it'd fetch close to $20,000 at least if it was in good shape. So just the fact that he owned it, oh yeah. You got to figure a Fender from that era. And again, I'm pretty sure 51 was the first year that they made those guitars. I know 51 was the first year they made the precision bass, which is now called usually just shortened to the P bass is what it's known as. Right. And so I believe, if I remember correctly, they made the Broadcaster and the precision bass at the same time, and then the Stratocaster and jazz basses came out later. And then obviously there's tons of other Fender models throughout the years. I won't waste everybody's time with listing all of those, but
because there's like 19 people on the planet that think of this shit like you do. And I'm not entirely sure how many of those listen to us.
Right.
That's really, it's kind of fascinating, those numbers. Like, if it was just Joe Bag of Donuts off the street that owns this 51 broadcaster, you're talking to be like right around 20K starting out, maybe.
That's my guess. Yeah, it'd probably be.
But then it moves up to a base of a reserve of $400,000 just because Stevie Ray Vaughan had it. Well, and and his brother had it too. But
right.
Is on one hand it feels like the number's really low because it just shouldn't go that much higher than $20,000 for the historical significance of the instrument itself. But then on the other hand, I'm thinking, of course, I'm a big Stevie Ray Vaughan fan, but on the other hand, I'm thinking, wow, that 400,000 reserve, that's really kind of conservative. I genuinely thought it was going to go for, of course, that's just a reserve. Ain't no telling where to go, but I'm thinking $600,000-$700,000 easy.
Well, now here's the thing. It's not something he ever used, on any of his solo recordings or anything as Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble or anything like that.
Right.
This guitar was long gone by the time he recorded Texas Flood. So like I could see like one of his guitars from that era, especially like either the Hondo, which is so the guitar he's holding on the cover of Texas Flood is actually a Japanese guitar brand called Hondo, and I could see something like that going for $600,000-$700,000 very easily, but I can still understand this one being that expensive. But that one like that, I would say that would probably fetch closer to $1 million or more. So
the one from Hondo, or the Hondo,
yeah, or even like even any of the Fenders that he used later on, which I know those are still. The main one that that's like the tobacco burst with the SRV letters on the pit guard and shit. That one's still. I forget who has that one. I think Fender actually might have possession of that just so they could make it into make a replica of it. I'm not sure
that's
who
true.
currently has
Well,
possession
it could be
of
one of those things that they have it in their possession, like they're, like a museum. They'll hold it, and then put it under the insurance and all that shit.
Right.
Just so they could do it. It probably still belonged to somebody else. Although I can't help but think that Fender's got enough money to buy it.
Oh yeah, no doubt. So.
Well, the last one I got in the music news is Tame Impala announced a major headline slot at Pitchfork Festival 2018. Nice. Tame Impala have been announced as a headliner at this year's Pitchfork Festival, and I have never heard of Pitchfork Festival in my life.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well,
it's big. It's pitchfork.com. They're a big music reviewing site for the last 20 some odd years. Yeah, I don't know when they started Pitchfork Festival. I think it's been within the last 10 years or so. But yeah, it goes on every year now.
Huh. But the Kevin Parker-led band are looking forward to an increasingly busy tour period this summer, with the Australian group set to take part in the festival in the UK, Europe, and North America. So,
nice.
Was
cool.
it? Hey, wait a minute. On a slight tangent, was it today or was it yesterday that I contacted you that I was looking at the numbers? That I was looking at the podcast numbers?
I think it was yesterday. It was yesterday morning. Yeah.
I got to tell y'all this. I put it out on social media, but hell, I don't even follow us on social media. But I mean, I do, but I write it. I write half of it, so I already know what I'm saying. But yesterday, y'all, I went and I checked the numbers, and we had more listeners out of Australia in the past 3 months than we did out of our own country. And I think it's friggin' awesome. I mean, that's
hell yeah.
I think we had, like, if I remember right, it was like 48.65% in the past 3 months have been from Australia, and I think 41.75% have been from the United States.
Yeah, I know you said it was 48 and some change. I couldn't remember what the exact amount was.
That's just awesome, man, for a country we ain't never been to.
Right.
Look, whenever I can get a good price on one of those bulk airlines where they take really large, heavy things in the belly of the airplane, if I can get one of those cheap tickets, I'll be taking my fat ass to Australia one day. I can tell you that. So, you got anything else before we get started, brother?
No, that's it, man. That's it.
So my story is about the ashes of the basis for the Sex Pistols, Sid Vicious, and I'm just going to go ahead and jump into the story. I'm going to assume that a vast majority of us in the listening audience has a good grip on who the Sex Pistols are and who Sid Vicious is. So instead of insulting y'all's intelligence, I'll just go ahead and jump into the meat of the story. So the mother of one of the most famous bassists for one of the most famous bands in music history is probably the worst possible person to have been in charge of anyone's child care, much more having one of her own. But born John Simon Ritchie, Sid Vicious was an iconic bassist for the most famous punk bands to date, the Sex Pistols. Would you agree, being Mr. Punk Master Flex, that they're probably the most famous punk band ever?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say
I'm not going into whether it's justified or not.
I know. them and the Ramones, which again, we talked about them before, but they're definitely up there. That's for sure. On.
So in February 1977, the Sex Pistols ended a pretty tragic United States tour that actually ended the band forever. They broke up during this tour, and that was just... I only read just a little bit into it, but that seemed like it was a goddamn dumpster fire. That entire tour. Oh, they had shit. They had shit that, like, Led Zeppelin would look at those guys and go, "Y'all need to calm the hell down." Jeez, they had crazy shit they were doing. But On October 12th of that same year, Sid was arrested and charged with the fatal stabbing of Nancy Spungen in the Chelsea Hotel, which was his. They call each other their soulmates, but that was his girlfriend, and they had been together for a pretty good chunk of time. So 5 days later, he was released on $50,000 bail that was posted by Virgin Records, Sid Vicious's British label. And he remained free until December 8th, when he was remanded to Rikers Island after he allegedly assaulted Todd Smith, the brother of rock singer Patti Smith, in a Manhattan Rock Club. I didn't know that one.
Holy shit.
So he remained in Rikers Island until February 1st. And that's crazy because I know you know the timeline, but normal people like us, I'm not aware of the timeline. So how crazy close this was to the time that he died. But he remained in Rikers Island until February 1st. We had explained in a previous episode. In fact, I just found out it was actually me. John told me that I did a story. I believe it was about Sid killing Nancy, wasn't it?
No, because I don't think it was. Well, was it the whole story was about him, or was it just an aside, just like kind of mentioned in passing? I don't know.
Hell, I don't know. We should really listen to our podcast.
Well, I do is the thing. I mean, I usually listen to it while I'm editing it, and then I'll usually listen to it at least once after I get it uploaded. But
yeah, that's the way I am. I usually listen to it once after you get it up. Well, anyway, we had previously done a story that included the story about the alleged stabbing of Nancy from Sid and a few of the surrounding circumstances that was before, during, and after. But so I'm not going to go into that right now. But anyway, we explained how the mother of Sid Vicious, her name was Ann Beverly, she was in heroin addict herself, and most likely. In fact, many believe that she gave the fatal dose of heroin to her son in March 1979, just days before he was supposed to stand trial for the alleged murder of his girlfriend Nancy Spungen in Sid's Greenwich Village apartment. Sid was found lying face up in the apartment of Michelle Robinson, which was described by almost everybody that they talked to that knew Sid Vicious. That was his quote unquote lady friend. At about 12:30 p.m. by Robinson and Sid's mother, Ann Beverly. He was pronounced dead on arrival at New York City morgue, which I can't help that he was probably dead before. Or why are they going to take him to the morgue instead of the hospital? You know,
right.
You know, I ain't no carpenter though. So. It's believed she did this to save him from being found guilty of murder, of stabbing Nancy multiple times with a knife that Nancy actually gave him as a gift just a few hours before she got stabbed. And they know forensically that she was stabbed with that knife. It's just all the other stuff I have to throw in allegedly. So to her, the thought of her little snowflake spending time in federal prison in the United States was just more than she could bear. Until she took another hit of the needle and then probably forgot it again. Now, one would think that if her shortcoming in life was being a mother, it's a small leap of faith to feel that once her son is out of the picture, there should be less stress and mistakes in her life. To this, I say nay, nay. After the death of her one and only son, she had one job. And that was to fulfill her son's last wishes to cremate him and spread his ashes over the grave of his former soulmate, Nancy Spungen. Really, how tough could that be?
Right.
There's anybody that's lost a child or a brother or a sister or a husband or a wife, you know, somebody that close to you, everything takes a back burner. You know, whatever you're doing, your life freezes right then and there. Your work, your car, your whatever, all that stuff takes a back seat to whatever you need to do for that person that just passed away that was special in your life. So, you know, she's not hurting for money. She's got a huge following of people that love her son. So this should be a snap. Well, although his ashes were reportedly scattered over Nancy's grave, a rumor still persists to this day that Beverly had accidentally spilled a jar of his ashes in Heathrow Airport on the way over, causing much of his remains to be sucked up into the air filtration unit.
Oh man.
Dude, as screwed up as this sounds, man, this actually gets better. I mean this in the most morbid sense. It gets better.
Right,
So for
right,
y'all
no.
that got a sick sense of humor, buckle in. So,
That's
even the most cursory amounts of research shown multiple versions of the story, and two of which I'm going to just kind of glide over on this one. I'm not going to go into every one of them because hell, y'all, we only got an hour podcast. So Miss Beverly had her son cremated, and Mom wanted to bring the ashes from New York City, where Sid died, back to England. So she allegedly did this so she could have her son's ashes with her and probably either gain attention or wealth from it.
right.
So that was the feeling of a lot of people that were connected with Sid and the band and whatnot, and people that knew her. So with Ern in tow, she heads to JFK Airport and boards a plane to Heathrow, which is completely opposite of what he wanted, because Nancy's buried in Philadelphia.
I didn't realize that. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Well, Nancy was American. Yeah, she's from
Right,
Philly.
right. I just wasn't sure where she was buried at.
Right. So no problems here. I'm quite sure that grieving parents and spouses transport their loved one ashes internationally all the time. Oh, did I mention that Anne Beverly had hidden her own personal heroin stash in Sid's ashes? I don't know if I brought that up yet.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So
That's ridiculous.
really, if you were to look at this in the most non-judgmental, reasonable way, in all honesty, it's not the worst place to hide your drugs.
So that's true. That's true.
The odds of security going through it are really pretty minimal. I don't know about today, but back in those days, So
Right.
Once Anne Beverly deplanes at Heathrow, she got a little nervous and about going through security. There was a lot more security around than she had anticipated, and she was starting to get a little uncomfortable. She had been counting on the idea that airport security was unlikely to sift through the cremation urn carried by a grieving mother. But she, nonetheless, found herself getting really, really nervous. In fact, as she edges closer to the security checkpoint, Miss Sid's mother becomes convinced that they are onto her and that the urn is going to be searched, and then she's going to be in a huge stack of trouble. So
Oh my God.
Anne Beverly did the only logical thing that any mother carrying her heroin stash in the urn containing her dead son's ashes could possibly do. She eyed the nearest well-concealed air conditioning vent and dumped the entire contents of the urn down the vent, where they disappeared forever.
What? So she purposely dumped it then?
Yeah, because she thought she
my
was going to get busted at a
God.
security checkpoint.
Well, that doesn't do anything about the heroin.
Well, the heroin's with the ashes. I would have just
so
taken out the heroin.
Yeah.
it's-
Oh God.
The heroin's in the ashes, so she's got the little baggies in the ashes.
Okay.
If
Gotcha.
it was
I thought
me,
you
I
were
would have
saying
just
that
taken the heroin out and thrown it.
right.
Maybe I'd be a
God.
horrible drug addict. I don't know. So, but I'm trying. For those of you out there, I'll try and be a better drug addict. So, Johnny Rotten had an interview with the Brooklyn Bugle, which I've never heard of this, but apparently
Yeah,
it's
me
like
neither.
a really reputable magazine. But this is a story the way that he understands it, the way that I've explained it up until now. This is the way that he understands it. Also, by the time that he ends the interview, the writer states Johnny is bawling when he says, "So to this day, Sid is floating around somewhere in Heathrow." However, the writer doesn't state whether he was crying or laughing. Now,
Gotcha.
although I've never met Johnny Rotten, to my knowledge, I think I would probably remember that. But although I've never met Johnny Rotten, I can say this would go either way, judging from his morbid sense of humor. I mean, the entire
Right.
group had like a really morbid sense of humor,
Oh yeah,
I
absolutely.
guess it's part of that punk thing, I guess.
Yeah.
Another version of the story comes from a few other articles I read about the case. And this one, Anne Beverly accidentally dropped her son's ashes on the tarmac of Heathrow Airport before she had a chance to pour them over the grave of his lover, Nancy Spungen. Although there is quite a variety of versions on the second story, no one narrative seems to be the one on as far as with what the believers of this account believe in. So
Right.
there was so many versions of just that one, and I guess if you were to count, everything that could possibly happen from the stairs of the airplane to, I don't know, whenever she got in the car, I guess, to leave the airport. I guess the variety covered all of those, every possible thing that could. But with that one version of it, it was just believed that, maybe she almost tripped or something like that, and like it broke on the tarmac.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then they were like, screw it, just kind of left it, So of the two versions of the story, I'm going to go with the first account. And my reasoning is this. There seems to be somewhat of a congealed version on the first account. Some of the details may vary, but the theme is the same all the way through. Johnny Rotten, which had absolutely nothing to do with the story whatsoever, but was best friends with Sid Vicious, he's going to have better resources to turn to for information than I do. So,
no doubt.
Although I can't say with any authority that he's sane or not, I can say he's not crazy and that he is somewhat educated. I don't think he's going to just let the story go without hearing about the details of the story. I mean, if I'm putting myself in his position, if me and you were in the world's most famous band for X amount of time, even though, if we didn't see each other for years after that, and then you died, I would be on it. Like, I want to know every detail about what happened,
Right, no doubt.
So I don't think he's going to let the story go without hearing the real details of the story. Either way, no matter which version you believe, Anne Beverly passed away in 1996. On September 6, 1996, Anne Beverly, 58, was found dead in her home in Swadlincote, Derbyshire, England, of a suspected drug overdose. According to the reports, police were tipped off to check the registered drug addict, which that's cool that they have registered drug addicts in the UK.
Yeah.
Do we have that
in
here?
a lot of no. Things like that are a lot different in the UK. Watch the movie Train Spotting and you'll see some of that type of stuff.
Oh, right. But the police was tipped off to check the registered drug addict when several friends received letters from Beverly saying that she planned to kill herself. Friends suspected Beverly was dejected over the pistol's filthy lucre. Am I saying that right? Lucre?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Okay, the filthy lucre reunion tour, whenever she called it sad and pathetic. She had gone on record describing the tour as something that would have had her much more principled late son rolling in his grave, quote unquote. Ironically, it was Beverly herself who just 3 days before her death had performed in Swadlincote, Derbyshire pub to a crowd of right around 30 people with her own punk band, Road Rage. This is
I did not know she had a band. That's God. Ridiculous.
Formed to cash in on the Pistols' action, in which found her warbling her own dismal rendition of Sid's shining moment, a version of Frank Sinatra's "My Way." There is no joke there. That just happened. Wow. So
I've seen a video of Sid Vicious singing that, and it was on like a television show.
Yeah. Oh, I'm actually familiar with it. Yeah, I've heard it plenty.
Okay,
of
you've seen that too. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha,
I don't know about the one you're talking about, but I've seen a handful of videos of him singing it, and that was before I did this story. But I remember them playing it on the radio.
Oh shit! Really?
Yeah, because
I didn't know that.
But a few of the things that I found out that were really interesting was that the Sex Pistols singer Johnny Rotten gave him the nickname Sid Vicious after his hamster Sid bit the then Johnny Ritchie. Ritchie proclaimed, "Sid is vicious," and the famous stage name was born.
Huh. I didn't know that.
Sex Pistols manager Malcolm McLaren stated on one documentary that if he had met Vicious before hiring Johnny Rotten, he would have chosen Vicious to be the front man of the Pistols instead, stating that Vicious had, quote, the most charisma of anyone on the band.
Right.
But that's
I can believe that.
And maybe that's the case, because God knows I wasn't around those guys at that time. But that's kind of like going up the Ramones and going, you know what? This guy is the most handsome guy on the Ramones. None of them are really lookers,
No. And I tell you what, maybe they should have had Sid Vicious do something else, because that dude could not play bass for shit.
Oh, yeah. Well, he wasn't even a bass player. He had to take lessons to play on the Sex Pistols.
Yeah.
Which
Man, yeah. To be fair, being a bassist in a punk band usually isn't that intense, unless you're talking about a band like Rancid. Their bass player is just insane. The
Right.
dude is sick. But just
Isn't
to
that
play
the guy
the
with the
basic
cornrows?
rhythm. I don't think so. I don't think Matt had cornrows. You might be thinking of. I'm trying to think. I know the guitarist Lars Fredriksson usually had a big old spiked mohawk. I don't know. I don't remember what he had.
Sid's abilities on bass guitar were sometimes questioned. In one interview, when this is so Beatles. In one interview, when asked why he, instead of Vicious, recorded the bass parts for their album, Nevermind the Bollocks, former guitarist Steve Jones stated, quote, "Sid was in the hospital with yellow jaundice and he couldn't really play. Not that he could really play anyway," unquote. So I guess it's like their version of the Beatles interview.
Right. Ringo's not even the best drummer in the Beatles. Yeah.
Yeah. Sid is credited with inventing the pogo, the move where you bounce up and down with the music.
Right.
I didn't even know that was
interesting.
a thing. It's funny how people break
that's...
shit down. You like that,
There was a band from South Africa called maybe I'm going to mispronounce this. It's a very like Dutch sounding name, Sportsverein Stille or something like that. And they had a song called Pogo and Togo about 10 or 15 years ago. And but yeah, that's a common thing. And the song Safety Dance by Men Without Hats was about the band complaining that bouncers in the clubs that they were playing at wouldn't let their friends pogo.
Oh, shit.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yes,
before joining the Sex Pistols, Sid was previously the drummer of punk bands Susie and the Banshees and Flowers of Romance. I did not know
Susie and the
that he
Banshees.
was a drummer for Susie and the Banshees.
I don't think I knew that either, actually. I love that band.
That's what I would see. Y'all, this is one of those little warm moments in my heart whenever I find out shit about John's genres of music that John don't even know. See, this is the shit I live for right here.
And the other one, I'm not familiar with that other band at all. What do you say, Flowers of Romance?
Yeah, I think that's
I've
who he
never
was
heard of
on
them.
directly before he joined the Sex Pistols, if I remember right.
Okay. Gotcha.
But yeah, me finding out shit that John don't know, to put it in common terms, hey, fat folks, like whenever somebody makes you a fried bologna and cheese sandwich, and you know how that feels warm going down your throat, and the taste of all that melted butter and cheese and the fried bologna and all, that's the way it feels in my heart whenever I find out information that John don't know, because it just don't happen that often, So Sid did time in the England Remand Center, which is their version of prison, after intending to throw a glass at a member of the band, The Damned, but instead blinded a young girl when the glass shattered. After the incident, the 100 Club, where it happened at, went on to ban all punk acts at the club.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that one. The Damned are a sweet band. I loved The Damned.
Oh, I'm glad you heard of them. Of course you heard of them. What the hell am I talking about? And
no, they're a legendary act from that era.
Oh, okay. The last one I got is in 2006, the Sex Pistols were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with the inclusion of Sid Vicious. In typical punk fashion, the band rejected the honor, with guitarist Steve Jones saying, quote, "Once you want to be in a museum, rock and roll is over," unquote. Did you really expect anything else?
Yeah, right. You mentioned that they did that reunion in '96. I actually do remember when that happened a little bit. I can remember Kurt Loder talking about it on MTV News one afternoon.
Oh, no kidding.
But yeah, that's interesting.
Well, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. We're going to take a quick break, and Big John's going to come back and let us know what he's got.
All right.
Hey friends, this is Mary from the Mary Movement Podcast. We tell true stories that will inspire, encourage, and warm your heart. So join the movement at themarymovement.com.
back. So, seems like every story I do these days starts with, "Oh, I saw this on Reddit." But, I guess that's a break from every episode being, "Old rock star did what when he was on drugs?" Although there's still plenty of story ideas I have that do revolve around that, so I guess maybe I shouldn't bash on that one too hard. But so this story today is one that I did indeed see on Reddit a long time ago, not recently. And I've had this sitting in my Google Keep list of potential stories for quite some time now. Since you messaged me yesterday to tell me that you were listening to Tell Me Something Good by Rufus, it kind of spurred this because I got to confess, I had no clue who Rufus was. I was like,
I'm ashamed that
we're
friends.
Is this? So while I'm scrolling through their Wikipedia entry, and for this particular song, I was surprised to learn that not only was Shaka Khan the singer, but that Stevie Wonder wrote the song.
What?
Yeah, right? And I was like, what? Okay, so started digging, and so that kind of inspired me to do this story today. I really don't think I need to give much, if any, backstory on Stevie Wonder. Obviously, the man's pretty well entrenched in the American music consciousness.
He's doing okay.
Oh yeah. He's one of those artists where if someone says they don't like at least one Stevie Wonder song, they either haven't heard enough of his material, have absolutely horrid taste in music, or are just straight up lying.
Or you don't need to be friends with them.
I really try hard to stay away from saying things like that these days because I realize I have a tendency to come off as a massively elitist prick.
No, but, John, say it ain't so.
But I'm really going to stand my ground on this one. And
right. I'm with you. I got your back, brother.
If you don't like Stevie Wonder, there's something wrong with you. Damn it. That's all I've got to say. So, for those living under a rock or too young to have been exposed to Wonder's numerous contributions to music, Stevie Wonder is a 67-year-old musician, singer, and songwriter from Saginaw, Michigan. Although primarily known for playing piano and keyboards, he is actually an incredibly solid drummer and harmonica player as well. For instance, he actually played the drums on Superstition.
I didn't know that.
And that was actually the first Stevie Wonder song that I can remember hearing. Jesus, forever ago. And I think the first version I ever heard actually was the Stevie Ray Vaughan version. And then I convinced my parents to get a Stevie Wonder Greatest Hits and listen to it from there. I also learned, though, that I just learned this part. I knew about the drums, but I just learned that apparently the song was originally intended for Jeff Beck.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, me neither. And Beck actually helped write the song a little bit. He was just playing a drum beat while he and Stevie were writing together, and Stevie said, "Hey, keep playing that," and he started improvising over it, and that's how. And as far as the harmonica aspect goes, he actually put out an album in I don't remember when it came out. I think it was before he really hit super big. I could be wrong. That he was just playing like old jazz songs and covers, strictly on the harmonica. And and that one I did not know about either. So, but I digress. Long story short, Stevie Wonder has written and or performed a ton of great songs throughout the years. And if you've never listened to his albums Talking Book, Intervisions, or Songs in the Key of Life, you need to do that as soon as humanly possible.
Amen.
Those are all phenomenal albums. The man is just crazy talented. So,
and then close it out with Stevie Wonder, the Carpool Karaoke. That'd be a good one to finalize it.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
It was good.
I don't find that guy funny, James Corden or whatever. He drives me nuts. I have no idea why.
I think that there again, I have absolutely zero talent, but I look at him doing it, and I think it's a phenomenal idea. Man, he's had Michelle Obama in there. He's had who's the Jennifer Lopez. He's had some big names in there, and I think it's a really great idea. Probably a different guy could do it better.
That's the key. Like, it's a cool idea. I can definitely agree with that. I just think he's annoying as shit. I don't know why.
A little bit. Yeah.
He annoys the bejesus out of me, though. So to get back to this story here, in 2014. March, actually, of 2014. We can narrow it down to that. What appeared to be a 1981 ad for the Atari 2600, starring none other than legendary and legendarily blind Mr. Stevie Wonder himself, appeared online with a headline stating, quote, "If I could play video games, you bet it would be Atari."
Oh, shit.
And so it goes on. I mean, there's a bunch of text on this thing, and I'll once I upload this, I'll try to post it to social media, this and some other things that I'll talk about here later. So the rest of the text on the ad, and there is a lot, says Stevie isn't superstitious, cue your eye rolling,
Right.
by rule, but when it comes to fun, he knows what's what. And when it comes to a game console system, only the Atari 2600 will do. My friends tell me the graphics are the best. I don't know what that means, but I know with the Atari 2600... I know, right? But I know with the Atari 2600, they must be uptight and out of sight. And it keeps going. It lists like some of the arcade ports of games that the system boasts, like Pac-Man, Missile Command, Space Invaders, Berserker, etc., and ends the paragraph with, "Stevie has them all. He likes to hear his friends having fun."
Oh, jeez.
In describing the simple joystick and paddle controllers as compared to the, I think it was the ColecoVision around that time, had this big bulky controller with like a 9-digit number pad on it and shit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It says, even Stevie can fumble his way through a joystick.
Oh, jeez.
And it should be noted here that the picture shows him holding said joystick the wrong way.
Oh, jeez.
So it's like backwards. Because
Try doing that commercial today.
Right? So you remember those Atari joysticks, you know, they had like the square base to them with the joystick right in the middle, and then there's like one red button on red,
those were
orange.
A godsend back in the day.
Yeah, oh, hell yeah. So it shows him holding one of those, and like normally you would hold it. Well, no, I guess I'm trying to think how I used to hold them. I don't remember if the button went in the front or in the back. Whatever.
I had the button under my left. Yeah, I have a button under my left thumb, and I control the joystick with my right hand. So I was.
Okay.
So I had the base of it under my. I was holding it with my left hand.
Gotcha. Okay. So the final paragraph of the ad reads, "You don't need two people to play with an Atari 2600 or even two eyes. All the best Atari games can be enjoyed by a single player. Stevie likes to play alone, even if he has no idea what's happening."
Oh, God.
And so like the bottom of this ad even has like in big bold capital letters, "Circle 118 on reader service card," you know, seemingly referencing the old mail-in cards that could be used to order products from ads and magazines, you know. So like, I mean, this thing looks legit as hell, right? And I remember seeing this get posted all over the place. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I've seen it pop up on Reddit and various subs like gaming and music and stuff like that, and even various Facebook groups I'm in. And there's a good reason why, because like I said, the ad does look a lot like an old magazine advertisement from that era. My grandfather on my mom's side was an OG computer nerd. I mean, he had an old Commodore 64 from the early 80s.
Yeah, man.
And he still had a ton of old computer magazines from that time. And I can't remember the one that he subscribed to, but there was one that every month with the magazine would send him a 5-inch floppy disk with several games on it. Holy shit, those games were fun. Me and my brother used to play the bejesus out of those games.
8-bit?
No, not even 8-bit. I mean,
green screen?
He had one screen that was blue and one screen that was green. He had like a 3-monitor setup. Like,
he was a baller, man.
Dude, you have no idea. My grandpa was crazy as hell with this. Dude was badass with this stuff.
He was OG LeBron James of freaking computers.
Yeah, dude was smart as hell. I mean, he'd been using this thing literally since the early 80s. But so I definitely remember seeing a lot of ads that looked like this one, you know? And there are several things that make this ad seemingly believable. Okay, for one, it's supposedly from the early 80s, because it does say 1981 down at the bottom of it. And, you know, that's not exactly an era known for, shall we say, sensitivity or political correctness. And I should state that I am far from easily offended. As I mentioned just briefly in passing during Randy's part of the episode, I greatly enjoy dark humor and often make jokes about tragedies or celebrity deaths and stuff like that. Like I remember saying, looks like he was driving too fast, too furious right after Paul Walker died, and probably has something to do with my taste in comedians like Stanhope and Louis C.K., Anthony Jeselnik, Tosh, all those guys. But so I'm not trying to say that the 80s was full of insensitive, horrible people who profited off of disabled people. But I'm just being honest in that while there's no way in hell a company could get away with an ad like that now, maybe they could have back then. Although I really, really doubt it, especially with that line, fumble his way through a joystick. I mean, Jesus.
Actually, I kind of feel the opposite. I really feel that they could have gotten away with it.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and I say that because it was just a different time. It's so funny because True. I was just having this conversation last night with the Jen, but it was a different time, and not saying that it's right, wrong, or indifferent. It was just a different time. No. And back in that day, it was the 80s, man. It was all about having fun, and True. You treat people with at least. You treated people with kindness and, a little bit of, I don't know. It seems like there was like two different things going on. Like whatever was public, everything was great. Everything was fun. Everything, and all. But the shit that you didn't talk about, that you just didn't talk about. So, like being homosexual. Well, that was wrong. But they would, dudes would go in their room and they would put in a VHS of two chicks making out. Right. Racial stuff was a lot different then. It was a lot better in some ways, and it was way worse in a lot of others.
Oh, I believe it.
But yeah, the publicly like making fun of it. I mean, that was like, you remember I told you what him and Ray Charles said during "We Are the World"?
No.
Him and Ray Charles, they were literally standing next to each other when they recorded "We Are the World." And, Quincy Jones had that thing at the door, leave your egos at the door. This is all about helping people, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, everybody was coming in, and him and Ray Charles were saying, if we don't do this shit in one take, we're the ones that are driving you home. It was just a different time, man. I mean, that shit was funny. They said it, so obviously it's okay. But
yeah, and there's more about that too. I'll get into here in a second as far as like his self-deprecate. Well, the next thing I wanted to mention was that it does look like a legit ad, but even though he's holding the joystick the wrong way, because the way I would always hold those joysticks was, you said you'd hold it with your left hand and move the stick with your right. I always held the joystick with my left hand, but like cradled the base of it with my right hand and would kind of wrap my thumb over the top with the button facing forward, like towards the TV. So this one, the button's facing back towards him, which I would consider backwards personally, just because it'd be more difficult to get your thumb back there, I'd think. But so even though he's holding it the wrong way, his thumb is still lined up over the button itself. So it's a pretty there aren't any obvious giveaways if it is a fake. You know what I mean? It looks pretty legit. Man, I loved playing Atari back in the day. I used to play the shit out of Berserker and Pole Position. We had this one game called Demons and Diamonds, which was kind of like a Space Invaders type game. You remember that one? And Pac-Man. We had Pac-Man too.
Dude, I had a girlfriend. Her name was Valerie, and you remember the old projection screens? Okay. They had an Atari that was hooked up to a projection screen. And I remember that was the first time in my life that I ever did anything on a projection screen. And we were playing Asteroids.
Nice.
The bullets that were coming out of the little spaceship was as big as my head. I thought I was such a friggin' baller. Oh, my God.
Now we had an Atari 2600, and then we later got a 5200, and I definitely spent more time playing the 5200, and that was the one that had it was a longer joystick or longer controller that had two buttons on it, one on each side, one on the left, one on the right, and then a joystick in the middle. So I played with that one quite a bit too. But even though I played Atari quite a bit, NES was definitely the first system I was actually old enough to be decent at. So, and I still have a working NES down here in my basement. But
I'll be damned. Isn't there a band
last
called
but not-
Diamonds and Demons? Come to think of it.
Maybe. I'm not sure.
Anyway, just
I'll
had
look
a
that
little
up.
Tourette's moment. Sorry.
You're good. So, you mentioned Stevie's self-deprecating sense of humor, and that's definitely something else people point at to try to figure out if this ad is legitimate or not. And one thing I saw a lot of people talking about on various forums as I was researching this was his 1983 appearance on an SNL parody commercial for a camera called the Canon with a K, AE1, and man, it is hilarious. So it's him taking pictures of some guy playing tennis, and like they show like him.
I
like,
remember
he's looking,
that.
Yeah, he's like looking through the camera trying to take these pictures, and he's like nowhere even close to the dude.
He's like
And
taking
it
up
is
with the stands and the sky and shit. Yeah.
Yeah. He takes one of the sky. Oh man, it's hilarious. And that's another thing I'll try to remember to upload to our Facebook account after I get this episode live. And he also once did an anti-drunk driving PSA poster that appeared in DMVs in Pennsylvania. It featured a picture of himself with the quote, "Before I'll ride with a drunk, I'll drive myself."
Oh, wow.
So clearly the man has a great sense of humor about his blindness. However, unfortunately for those looking to reap that sweet, sweet Reddit karma, aka fake internet points, this thing is as fake as the Atari 2600 version of Doom that floated around in magazines 20 years ago or so.
No!
Yeah. On March 30th, 2014, the same month that the faux ad had been making its rounds around the interwebs, Kotaku, a well-known internet site that's kind of just like all things nerdy, video games, TV shows, movies, shit like that, published an article by writer Luke Plunkett confirming it as a fake. Its origins lie in a very real ad Stevie had taken part of back in the mid-70s for Musitronics Corporation's Mutron 3, an envelope filter made to simulate synthesizers. So you see this ad from this product, and it's him holding this synthesizer in a box. It's not really, I wouldn't really necessarily call it an effect pedal because it doesn't look like it has a foot switch, but it has knobs and shit like that, and an input and an output. And so he's holding it, and you can see the way he's holding it. It clearly is the same position as the picture of him holding the joystick.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this thing is square, so it's same shape as those old Atari controllers like that. So they just took that out and dropped it in a whole new ad, and obviously photoshopped out the Mutron and put in the Atari 2600.
Sure.
And so that was pretty interesting, and Stevie used that very effect on his 1973 hit Higher Ground, which the ad specifically mentions. And a fun fact for guitar nerds like myself, this effect found new life in 1995 when its creator, Mike Beigel, worked with Electro Harmonics to create the Qtron pedal, which I have heard of. And I love EHX pedals. Their small clone chorus was the third pedal I ever bought, I believe, around 15 years ago, and it still sits on my pedal board to this day.
I'll be there.
But the ad was so convincing, though, that almost 2 months, this fake Atari ad was so convincing that almost 2 months after it surfaced, the Washington Post featured it in an article entitled, "What Was Fake on the Internet This Week?" So,
wow.
Yeah. And I mean, they confirmed, they even referenced the Kotaku article, stating that it is a fake, and linked to the to a picture of the Mutron ad as well. So, despite it being fake, hats off to the creator for it being one of the more convincing ones I've seen.
Right.
So, and it's funny. It's funny. I'll put that up there, and I'll put the original and the doctored one, the Atari one, up there so everybody can see it. But oh man, yeah, it was a good one, and it's something I had seen several times before too. So it's kind of cool to actually. I knew it was fake, but I didn't know all the details behind it. So it was fun to kind of dig into that a little bit.
I think it's one of those Mandela effects that, as you're describing it, I was like, I think I remember this. Yeah, but maybe.
Really? Well, you've probably seen it on Reddit before too, is my guess.
Possibly. I don't know. You're into some pretty heady stuff, man. If I find out that you follow a particular subreddit, I usually just unsubscribe from it because I'm not. That means like I'm probably not going to understand it. Whenever you first start an account, like it automatically gives you like pics and funny and whatever.
The default subs.
Yeah, there's sometimes you just kind of get a bug up your ass. You feel like clearing house, and all right, what's some ones that are really not funny or not interesting or whatever, and I'll do so. Usually, if I see that you have a particular subscription to a subreddit, I'll go, "Oh yeah, I need to take it out because I'm never going to understand that shit."
No, you like well, I'm trying to think. Awful taste, but great execution.
Yeah,
that's a fun one. I know I showed you that one.
I just got hipped up on that one. That was a good one. And then something hold the soda or.
Where did the soda go?
Where did the soda go?
Great one. That one blew up, man. Like when I first started following that sub, it was like the highest post would be like 200-300 upvotes, and now it's like 15,000. Jesus Christ, what the hell happened to this one? It blew up, man.
And what the hell happened to watch people die?
Oh, well, it's back up now.
It
did go down. Yeah, it did go down briefly yesterday, but even it went down and then came back up in the same day.
I'll be down.
So yeah, it's up.
People were just making such a big stink about it. It's shit like that makes me think that people need to get outside and breathe fresh air and get out in the sun, get a little vitamin D in your life, And
that sub in particular, like they stick to themselves pretty well. They don't go brigading into other subs. They don't mess with anybody else. It's not like the Donald or Shit Reddit says, any of those subreddits that really like to brigade and mass upvote or mass downvote or start spamming comments like crazy. So it kind of surprised me that anything happened with them because they really just keep to themselves. And I mean, it's not anything that you can't find on LiveLeak anyways. You know what I mean?
Oh God, yeah, LiveLeak. That's it's like space dicks almost. Jesus. That one scared me, man. Jeez. Well, you got anything else before we shut this bad mother down?
Nah, man, that's all I got.
All right. So music history doesn't end just because our episode ends.
Anytime you've got a music myth or legend you would like to hear us talk about on the show, feel free to reach out to us on social media. You can find us on Facebook at Tall Tales of Music Mythology, or on Twitter at T2M2 Podcast, or you can email us at hosts, HOSTS, at T2M2.org.
And if you want to know more about what the Smarts Project can do for you and your high school music programs, then join us at our home on the web at thesmartsproject.com. And our complaint department is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at randy@thesmartsproject.com. Now more than ever, be kind to each other. Tell your kids you love them each and every day. And whatever you do in life, never be a myth.
Always be a legend.
Love you. Bye.
Bye. Hey everybody, John here. If you'd like to hear me rant about other topics besides just music, check out the Gluff Nation podcast, where my brother and I tackle topics from politics, pop culture, and tech trends. Find us on YouTube, and we'll be bringing our rambling diatribes to iTunes and everywhere else podcasts are available soon. Thanks for listening.